Peace, this is Brian Life. Sorry, there's a little bit of noise from my heater, but hopefully you can hear me well, and hopefully this mic is not too loud. Okay, check, check. So basically, if you have a loop that's a waveform and you'd like to slice it, it's just a regular loop of drums. If you notice, all these waves are pretty close to the top, normalized, like they're pretty nice and meaty, right? Nice. I can obviously gain them a little bit higher, but let's just leave it where it is. So this is the loop that I want to use inside of a slice, a sampler or a simpler. But I'm just going to use sampler since that's what I noticed you were using on your Facebook post. So I'll do a new MIDI track, right? I'm just going to show you what it does, like by default. So you got the sampler in there. I grabbed an instrument, grab sampler. Okay, you could choose different ones, but like I just chose that. I'm gonna take that loop and drag it in. Okay, and then oh my bad actually. So it is simpler. Yeah, so you're using simpler. So forget that. So basically simpler, and you drag it in and then you click on slice, right? So now obviously it's gonna slice everything up, right? But if you notice over here down on the right side, the bottom right, it says volume negative 12 dB, right? So that's much lower, but that is also, and then also velocity is 35%, right? Since I'm playing this right now, I'm just on my regular QWERTY keyboard, but since you're playing it with your fingers, the velocity isn't taken into account. But if I'm not going to play it right here, I just made a MIDI notes. You basically, this is what I do. I basically turn up the volume. So I'm going to close that one that I just started because I already have one, right? So here, if I do turn up the volume, right, to like around say 6, now right here, this audio track is a resampling track. So basically it's going to resample whatever's playing. And I did this because I want you to see the waveform and how different it is when you change the volume. So I already did that. I recorded. I'll do it again. But I arm it by clicking the red button, so now it's ready to record. And this is soloed. This is that sample. I put some MIDI notes, right? It's the same drum sample chopped up. So basically, I'm just going to record it. We could see it coming in. It's terribly high, right? Whoa, way bad, very bad. So that's also because in the sampler, I think I just turned up velocity. And in each MIDI note, if you notice, I have these velocities very high. And I do like for my kicks to be really high, for my snares. So you're doing all this velocity and all these things are taken into account. But obviously I think the volume was too high. So that's why right around like say 9, yeah, it's not going to show the velocity because I'm on a little keyboard. I'm not on a weighted keyboard. So let me try just to record the loop and see what happens. So it's lower, so I could go up higher. Now obviously it would, if you had a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard with sensitivity to the velocity, now you'd know where you'd like to be at, right? So that's the thing, is you got to adjust. Basically why I'm making this video is to let you know that you do have to adjust the volume and the velocity, and then it's up to you on how you're going to play, how hard you're going to press the notes, the midis, or if you're just going to do it visually by eye in here, just draw them in. If you're just going to draw them in, you got to check just see the volume. That's better. I think I can go a little bit higher. Now, I'm not sure if you could change the no, you can't change the volume to each one. 8.4 is good to me. You know, the slicing part, everyone keeps saying slice to drums. I guess so, you know what I'm saying? I don't really like do that very often. I don't play like MPC style. Where does it say that? Slice to drum rack, so you just click inside. You know, I guess that's another way to go about it. Um, yeah, if you slice to drum rack, it's basically a bunch of small little simplers, and you can individually change the volume. All right, I'm back. So I had a problem where everything was just playing hi-hats. I mean, the whole loop was only sounding off the hi-hat because wherever there was another um, sample, a MIDI note overlapping or in the same space on the grid as the other note, it was choosing only one of them as a priority, right? You know, definitely like a drummer can only has two hands, so he can only sort of play one thing at a time. If he's hitting the cymbal or if he's hitting the closed hi-hat, you know, they're two different things. So they try to simulate that, I guess. And when you click in the drum rack, right, there's the chain area and then there's choke. So all of them by default was set to uh, 1. So I was just getting this. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And I don't know if you can change the choking, like how long it chokes, but basically, if you change each sample to be a different choke, it's going to play every sample at the same time while they're overlapped and all that. Okay, so I figured that part out. That was definitely something I didn't know about. I thought it automatically, or if there was one little button or something like that. What I noticed when you first posted your post, you had a simpler, and then in that simpler you had a sample inside of it, and then you sliced it up. And people were advising you to right click and slice that to a drum rack. That's what I did over here. So now that's the drum rack, and you got every individual slice as MIDI notes, and you can play them. And I believe now, since it's a drum rack, each drum sample has its own simpler attached to it. So you can change the volume and velocity as you want. I do think you can right click, yeah, copy value to siblings. So all of the others will get also the same value. But, you know, this is something you have to kind of like play with. It's not a perfect science. It depends on each sample that you have. You know, it depends on how hard you're playing them on the pads or the keys, and then that's up to you on how much velocity you want to have, you know. So it's really all like, you know, I could maybe try just to default and set copy to siblings and then just turn up the velocity to 100%. Maybe that will record. No, so that's way too high. And the reason again is because each note has a pretty high velocity. You see 127. Like I always overdo it with my velocity. So that's something we don't want. Oh my bad. So velocity, we'll bring that way down. That's cool. Right there seems to be decent. Let me see. I'm gonna record. Remember, I have resampling. The audio, I set it to resampling, so now it's gonna resample whatever's playing. This is sort of my like tester. It's not bad. The volume, these are pretty punchy. They're not too great, but again, I'll go, let me see, velocity, I'll turn that up higher. And then you can also right click, copy value to siblings again. So that's where I'm, yeah, so I think it's just more about velocity depending on your notes. Each MIDI note might be different. Like I said, there's two factors. It depends on how hard you're pressing or hitting the pads. So then that's up to you on how you want to set your velocity, or do you want to change your volume and just do it like that. So right here is good. Very similar to this beat. The sorry, over here, the original. The original is the waveforms are pretty close to, you know, peaking out. And that's about it right there. So let me get rid of this. Still seems to be going in the red pretty high. I don't want to change the volume on here, but I might want to change this velocity and then copy value to siblings. Good. So now I'm not peeking out. Everything's cool. And you know, you could do other things like in this drum rack, you can close it. You can add like a utility and gain it if you want. So instrument effects, audio effects, utility, and you can now control the gain here if you feel like it. If you kind of want to, like, you know. But this is not going to work on each individual drum sample or MIDI note. It's going to only work on the whole wave or the whole set of MIDI notes. Okay? And that's kind of like my answer to this problem, is that, you know, by default it's very low in volume. So let me go back to your first question, was looking at this simpler. Yeah, it's negative 12. I always found that pretty weird. So it depends on your velocity, if you want to change your velocity up higher, and then how you're playing it, or if you're just going to draw it in by hand, you may want to turn up the volume and just leave the velocity as is. And you know, you're just gonna have to kind of like manually work on this. And somebody already told you how to slice to a drum rack. So hopefully some of those tips helped. But definitely that whole like copy to siblings was a key. When I found that out, I was like, oh snap. You know, so that, if you don't know that, maybe you just learn that one aspect. Copy value to siblings. You know, same with the transpose. Copy value to siblings. I mean, you wouldn't, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but peace. Double peace. Peace, peace.